Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk, where we meet with interesting people from different walks of life. We talk about their journey and the work that they put out, and just anything else about their life that's interesting. Before we get started, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell so you see when new videos come out, because we want to keep you informed. Today I have with me Cass Kim. Thanks for being here, Cass.
Hey, thanks for having
Hey,
me.
absolutely. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell everyone what it is you do.
Okay, sure. So I'm Cass Kim. I'm an independent author. I wrote the young adult trilogy, the Wilders trilogy. I also, every year, I had these charity anthologies. The last year's went to the ASPCA. This year's is going to Feeding America. They're kind of like a light forward account every year in the time. I'm also a ghostwriter, a book coach, and a speech-language pathologist.
Oh my gosh, you are one of the busiest people I think I've ever met. Before we get too far in, you live in Hawaii, correct?
I do.
I'm in
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina on the East Coast, so there might be, I don't know if there's any hiccups in the connection between here, but I just want to give a heads up to everyone. Hopefully, everything comes out crystal clear. Um,
I am in the middle of the ocean,
yeah,
literally.
in the middle of the ocean. And I want to get into that because I'm sure everyone watching is like, what the heck is it like to live in Hawaii? But first, let's talk about your book before we sway too far into all the rabbit trails. Um, Wilders, I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on the screen here. What can you tell us about it without giving too many spoilers?
Oh, that's kind of tricky. So it's a trilogy. The first book is actually a prequel, so it has a different set of characters,
Okay.
and that's like the night of an outbreak of a new virus. So it's a little bit more kind of gritty, gruesome. And then the first book is our main cast of characters that we have for the next part of the series. And it is kind of hard to not give much away.
Yeah.
It's I guess the thing I would say about the book is it's a good book for you to read if you like character development and action that's so I know some people are like all about action, and it does have some character building more in a literary sense where you have some introspection. But I think it makes it really stronger. That's what I'll be saying. The characters are so believable, so realistic. And so if you like that kind of thing, then that's the way to go.
Okay. How long ago did you write this book? This series?
Um, I wrote the first book in it, Wilders, May of 2019, so about a year ago.
Okay. So before everything happened, before
Yeah.
the pandemic. So I only ask you that because I don't want people out there to think that you wrote it, the pandemic hits, and you're like, hey, I'm going to capitalize on this by writing a pandemic book. You wrote it before all of that happened.
Yes, the
Okay.
entire series was done by January of 2020.
Okay. And you said it was for young adults, YA.
Yes, it's appropriate. Yeah, it's not super gruesome. There is a little bit of gore, and a little bit of cursing, but nothing really adult.
Okay. Would you classify it as like sci-fi? Is it horror, suspense? Where'd you throw it in that spectrum?
I would say science fiction and maybe a little bit dystopian.
Okay. Awesome. Uh, Amazon?
Yes,
Okay.
Amazon Kindle Unlimited. You can get the individual books. The prequel is only 99 cents if you just want to check it out. Or it's got the whole trilogy with the really nice cover design by Kate.
Okay. Everyone check it out. Amazon. It sounds fantastic. We're gonna dig into deeper questions now. Talk more about your life, and I only say that everyone heads up. There may be some spoilers coming, so you may click ahead a little bit if you want to learn more about her. But we're gonna dig into the book series a little more, and so I want to give a warning in case you're out there and you don't like spoilers. So you wrote the whole trilogy. The whole trilogy is done. It's available, right?
Mm-hmm.
How what was your thought process between books? So you finished book one, and how did you think this is what I'm gonna do with book two?
So I actually thought it was going to be a standalone book when I wrote it. I wasn't really writing for myself at all at that point in time. I just had to look up this text and it's like, oh, I see in my head. And I just wrote it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I edited it in like a week and a half, and just published it. And I didn't think I was going to write anything else necessarily. Like, I'll just do that. So I don't email to people. And then people started reading it and left reviews saying they wanted more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, really lucky.
Yeah.
And so I wrote the prequel. I just kind of knocked it out really quick. But it didn't wrap up the series, and that's what people wanted. They wanted an ending because the first book kind of leaves you on a little bit of a cliffhanger. So I was gonna write a whole different series based on my short story from the Autumn Nights charity anthology. But I decided to wrap up the series instead. Like a whole thing, actually. And it was, I think, probably my best writing to date.
Wow. Okay. Great. Yeah. So, how'd you get the idea of the pandemic before a pandemic hit?
Well, when I wrote it, I wasn't really thinking of it as a pandemic so much as like it's this girl who's growing up in this world that's different. And I really think it wasn't really a common part of our vocabulary at that point in time. So it just kind of worked out that way. Like, how could something be so vast that it would change life, but life could still go on within reason? So kind of like today, where we all, we should wear masks when we go out. In my series, you're pretty safe if you're out in the sunlight. So kind of like a vampire zombie thing. I would say that the virus turns people into like kind of a combination of like berserker, zombie, vampire types. But they do die. The disease does kill them eventually, just after they make a lot of damage.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're a speech therapist?
Yes.
Speech therapist, correct? Pathologist?
Yeah. Speech-Language Pathologist is the fancy term.
So what does that mean in fancy terms? What is it you do in fancy terms?
So I work in a hospital, so I help people recovering from traumatic brain injury and stroke. I work a lot on dysphagia, which is swallowing, eating and swallowing. So I help them return to an oral diet safely, and then move them through the stages of the diet safely. Or as we say in clinical, restrictive diet.
Okay. Interesting. Did that influence any of your writing at all? Like, does some of that stuff come up?
I would say like my knowledge of infection control is probably something that has influenced Wilder's. Probably that's the big.
Okay. I can see that. What's it like in Hawaii right now with everything going on? Were you guys hit hard or?
No. So Hawaii was, our leadership acted very quickly to shut everything down. So people stopped going to work before we even really had much for cases here. People who were considered non-essential. And then they put this like 14-day quarantine for travelers. So anybody coming into Hawaii is required to quarantine themselves for 14 days wherever they're staying. They're not supposed to go to the beach, out to eat, nothing like that. There are definitely people who have been violating it, but they are actually arresting people for violating that quarantine. They also decreased or stopped allowing travel between the islands as well to kind of keep them as safe as possible. So we really only had, we've been really lucky. We've only had 17 deaths. It's still really sad for the families and the people.
Of course, yeah.
But then now that they've started reopening, we've seen our highest spike since early April. So we had, I think, 14 new cases yesterday, 27 people were small compared to a lot of the mainland. But I think our bigger concern is what's going to happen when we stop having the traveling restrictions. And because Hawaii depends so much on tourism for its economy, at some point they're going to have to open things back up.
Yeah, that's a tough decision.
I'm glad I didn't have to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I don't want to be in that spot. So, because you wrote a book about disease, how much time had you spent trying to figure out how a quarantine would happen on a mass scale for your book series?
I really didn't spend that much time. I'm the worst. I don't know. I mean, a lot of it happens post quarantine. It's
Okay.
They don't really do quarantine because they found that it wasn't super effective with this particular virus because of the high transmission rate.
In the book. This is in her book.
Yeah, in my book.
Not COVID.
Yeah,
in her book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they do some quarantine as the virus changes and morphs. So there is some amount of quarantine, and it is kind of talked about how they try to manage people within cities and how they make that work.
Okay. Interesting. So without giving too much spoilers, this thing mutates somewhat.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you outline the series? Did you free write it? You just
I free wrote it. Yeah, I did do a kind of a general outline for book one. So what I kind of tend to do if it's not ghostwritten, if it's ghostwritten, you kind of have to get your own outline. They give you an outline, outline for you already. And then I'll usually get to a point where I'm kind of like stuck. If I do this, is it gonna work? If I do this, is it gonna play weird for my characters? If I do this, is it way too complex? Did I set it up well enough? Did I not? And then I'll kind of draw like that triangle like you see in like high school where it's like, inciting incident, rising action, climax, and then like falling action and resolution. And I'll kind of map that out a little bit.
Okay. And you do that every time you're stuck?
If I'm stuck, I'll do that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you do that with all the possibilities that are going through your head on what you want to do?
Yeah, just so I can look at how it would build or not build, or like, and sometimes that looks like starting to write a scene just to see how it would play with the characters. Because I really don't like when I read a book and that's still a lot of characters that they would never actually do that. They're just being stuffed into a plot, and I don't like to do that. So I try to make sure that nobody has to say or do anything that does not.
Are you jumping around perspectives in the book?
In the last book, it has a double point of view. It has the main character Rena and her best friend.
Okay. So interesting. So, so you just write until you get stuck, and then figure out how you're going to unstuck yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. What was med school like? Where'd you go to med school?
So you don't have to go to med school to do what I do. You have to have a master's degree. So it is a health profession. It does require a master's. Okay. I got my master's in Michigan.
In Michigan? Or are you from Michigan?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How'd you get to Hawaii?
My husband.
Oh, okay. Is he Hawaiian, or does he just work in Hawaii?
He's local.
Okay. So I'm sure, like, everyone's dream is, I want to live in Hawaii. Everyone, right? Yeah. Is it as great as everyone thinks it is?
I mean, it's beautiful, but you still have your I think when people think, oh, I want to move to Hawaii and live there, I'm going to surf every day, I'm going to go to the ocean every day, I'm going to go on these gorgeous hikes every day, but you still have to work and you still have to pay bills, and your bills here are super high compared to a lot of places in the mainland. I'd say it's maybe comparable to like New York or LA, really? Price-wise. So you definitely pay to live in paradise, they say here. And then, you still have your everyday responsibilities. And then on top of that, I feel like sometimes you have like a sense of guilt of like, oh, I'm so tired. It's the weekend. I should go out and do something, but I just need to do chores and I just want to relax. And then you feel like, oh, I wasted an opportunity to do something amazing in this amazing place.
That makes sense. Do you?
It is really beautiful, and the people are so nice. Like they always say, like Hawaii has aloha, and it really does. Like everybody is just really nice here.
What's the weather like? Is it just sunny and rainy? Because islands get a lot of rain, right? When I went to the Bahamas, it rained all the time, but like everyone's just prepared for it.
Yeah, so it rains more in different parts of the island. So there's a lot of big mountain ranges in Hawaii, and some of the clouds kind of get stopped by some of the mountain ranges. So it depends on what part of the island you live on, where you get how much rain you get. And then the different islands get different amounts of rain as well. Like Hawaii is super lush and beautiful because it gets a lot more rain than some of the other islands.
Okay. Do you ever get like claustrophobic, or like because you're on the island, or you're just like I miss the mainland? Like, does that is that I hate to say the mainland, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that I mean, it is the mainland. That's what we call it. Yeah, I don't get like island fever or anything like that, but I do get homesick. I haven't seen my family in a year now because
Mm,
of the virus. You know, I can't travel right now to see them. It wouldn't be safe for them or for me.
sure.
So that's kind of tough. And I miss seasons. I think that's kind of why I started the Autumn Nights anthologies, is because I really miss fall. That's my favorite season, and you just really don't have season changes here too much. It gets a little cooler at night in the winter, and it gets a lot hotter sometimes in the day in the summer, but it's usually pretty temperate. And you get like seasons where more of the flowering trees are blooming, like looking out my window as I'm saying that. But it's really pretty much overall the same vibe all year.
That's amazing. I mean, obviously you're from Michigan, so you've seen the polar opposite of that,
Yes.
where it's seasons a lot. So I'm originally from Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we get all the seasons. Was it hard for you to adjust to the? Was it hard to adjust to Hawaii?
Um, yes and no. It's hard to adjust with the time differences. I'm 6 to 5 hours behind my family all the time when the night she's on me because we don't recognize daylight savings time here. Or we don't. But there is no daylight savings time here. So half the 6 hours behind, half the year 5 hours behind. That makes it kind of tricky to like call grandma because if I don't do it before work, if I'm just running around or I get caught up in a writing thing, don't make the time to call her, I can't call her after work. Sometimes not even, on my lunch break if it's a later lunch break kind of day. So that's tricky. But I like Hawaii. It's really beautiful. The food is really good, and you get to learn a lot about people here because there's a big mix of cultures here.
That's fascinating. I want to ask you more, but I thought of a question about your book that we didn't discuss. Is it is it based in the real world, the Wilder series, or is it a
Yeah.
made up world? Okay.
hmm Yeah. So it's set in the real world. It's set in the Adirondack Forest in Upper New York.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. Uh, Everyone should check it out. We're gonna keep chatting, but I'm gonna tell you again. Amazon, check it out. I'll leave a
Thank
link
you.
in the description below so people can just click on it. But definitely check it out. It sounds amazing. You write in anthologies for charity.
Yes. So I've had the creation of anthologies for charity, and I write a story in it as well. But it's usually a multi-author, or it is a multi-author anthology. So I usually only write one story. I'm
Sure.
writing one and co-authoring one this year.
Okay. Is it for the same charity every time?
No, it's different charity every year. So last year I went to the ASPCA. That was Autumn Nights 13 Spooky Fall Reads, and that had 14 authors. So it actually had 14 stories, 13 plus bonus.
Yeah.
But that went to the ASPCA, and it will continue. All the profits from it will continue to go to the ASPCA until it ever gets unpublished. If I just,
Sure.
can't sort everything anymore or get tired of
Sure.
writing, or who knows. But anyways, as far as I know, it'll be indefinitely. Um, and then this year is going to is 12 Tales for Midnight, or 12 Chilling Tales for Midnight, I think. And that's going to Feeding America. So all the profits from that particular book are going to go to Feeding America this year on. And then whatever that one. So that's changed phase where the charity goes to. So if like more people buy the first book after reading the second book, then the ASPCA is going to get money as well as Feeding America, and so on and
Okay.
so forth.
Okay. Um, do you just go through the same handler every time, or how's that work? Like,
What do you mean?
like, does the same person approach you and say, "Hey, we're doing another anthology, but we're doing it through this charity," or are you looking for different charities to be involved with?
Oh, I'm the one who does
Oh,
it.
you're the one who sets it up. Oh, well, that's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's much easier than. So
um,
how are you just reaching out to authors that you know, or is it like the authors that you like? How are you finding your 13 plus one authors?
so that's a really good question. This year it's actually only 9 authors. It's going to vary depending on the number of stories and that sort of thing. So I do reach out to people that I interact with more just because I feel more comfortable asking them to donate their time and their stories. Because authors don't get paid. So they basically get exposure and that's it. And it is a lot of work because not only do you submit your story, but you have to beta read at least 3 other stories. And then you have to get your beta reads back, take that feedback as you choose to, and then turn in your final draft. And then we all have to kind of eagle eye for typos. So it does take some time, and it is a donation of that author's time and talent. So I do feel more comfortable reaching out to people that I know. But if somebody is like super into the idea and really wants to be in next year's anthology, like reach out to me and I'll kind of see. Part of what it is though too is like I want to know kind of what you're all about. So if I'm familiar with you on Twitter, that makes me more comfortable including you as well, because it matters to me. I'm not saying I censor what people say or anything, but it matters to me what kind of things you stand for, because it is a charity. The profits go to a charity, and it is to an extent associated with the charity for that reason. And I don't want that to reflect. I don't want the authors to reflect on the charity in an inappropriate way.
That makes sense. Do you want people to just reach out to you on Twitter? How do you want?
Yeah, okay. They can. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or I also have on my website, which is cascam.cascam.com. I don't know why it's twice, probably because I'm bad at computers. But there's a page for the anthologies there, and you can also email me. There's a link to click to email me ideas for where you think would be good to donate to, what reasons you would have for selecting that particular charity for next year. And certainly people could reach out to me about like, hey, I'm interested and ready for it.
Okay, that's interesting. What made you decide? I mean, obviously you care about people. You work in a hospital. It's very clear you care about people, and you want to help people. But what made you decide like I want to do an anthology for charity?
So the first year I just actually wanted to do an anthology. Like I said, I get really homesick in the fall. And so I wanted to do a fall anthology to kind of I love Halloween. And like I said, we don't get the season changes here. So I just wanted to kind of just dig in deep into that feeling. And so the first year we weren't 100% sure what we were going to do, but we ended up with this theme of a black cat. So there's a black cat in every single story with a torn right ear. And so we decided to do the ASPCA kind of in honor of that cat idea, that theme, and as a charity that we all, could get behind. So that's how that started. And then this past fall, after the anthology did really well, because we were really lucky and it did really well. We've donated over $2,000 now to the ASPCA, and it hasn't even been a year yet.
Wow. That's fantastic.
I'm super grateful. Yeah. People have been so into being a part of it and reviewing it and buying it and reading it on KU and all of that. But anyways, at the end of the year, I heard a radio commercial for Feeding America while I was driving, and I was like, that sounds like such an important cause. And this was also before all of the COVID stuff. And I was like, that sounds like such an important thing to be a part of. I can donate, and I do donate, but I can't donate thousands of dollars to charities. Sure. Like I can with the anthologies if they continue to go as well as the first one. So even though I was kind of initially not going to do another anthology after the first one, because it's a lot of work. It's very time consuming. I heard the radio commercial, and I was like, nope, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another one every year, and I'm going to pick a charity, and that's how I'm going to be able to give back my person.
That's incredible. That's incredible. The amount that you've done, the fact that you're going to keep doing it, even though it's a lot of work, that's incredible.
Yeah. It's really lucky to have people willing to donate their time and stories too, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find these? On your website?
On Amazon.
On Amazon? Okay. Are they under your author page?
You can find them under any of the author's author pages, I believe. But I think I'm the top listed author because I'm the one who does all of the money to charity part of it. Okay. So yeah, it's on. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's also on Audible. So if you like Audible, also the first anthology is on Audible. I'm not sure yet if this year's is going to be. It depends on if we can get a narrator to do royalty share or not. But yeah. Oh, my books are on Audible as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll make sure the link in the description goes straight to your author page, so people can just find all the books. Uh, People, you check them out. You're going to get 13 plus 1 stories or 9, depending on which one you get,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to help out charity. So definitely do that. Definitely do that. So I'm going to jump back to Hawaii now.
Okay.
You said the food's really good.
Yes.
What are some of those foods that stand out?
So I always like kalua pig with cabbage and rice. I should probably eat it with brown rice, but I always eat it with white rice because it's so good.
So what is brown rice just better for you?
Yeah, it's like healthier. It's more of a whole grain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I always get brown rice. I just didn't know the difference.
Oh yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, kalua pig's really good. It's like the slow cooked, like just kind of smoked pig that they make here. That's really yummy. I think just the best part about Hawaii is because there's such a blend of Asian cultures here. You can get like Filipino food that's really good and authentic. You can get Japanese food that's really good and authentic. You can get Chinese food. You can get like Korean food. There's just so much options for like really well done like Asian flavors, and you can get traditional or more Americanized.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. What's it like? So obviously all those cultures, the people that are coming over are bringing their cultures with them.
Yeah.
What's it like with all those cultures interacting? Is it each one still unique, or are they kind of blending together?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm super qualified to answer that. I will say something that I like about Hawaii. I am in an interracial marriage. My husband is Korean, as you could guess from the last name Kim. It's nice because there's a lot of mixed marriages here. It's not like a weird thing. It's not unusual. It's really common for people to be like hapa, like half this, half that. So that's a really nice thing. I think there's a lot more acceptance of that. And I think something that's really interesting in Hawaii that kind of took me aback is it's not unusual for someone to meet you and be like, "What are you?" And on the mainland, it'd be like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
Like, it's not where are you from? It's what are you? Like, are you Filipino? Are you Chinese? Are you Hawaiian? Are you, people even ask me, like, are you German? I'm like, oh, Michigan. you know.
That's interesting because I live next to Raleigh, North Carolina, where there's rioting, there's protesting. And if you ask that question, it's going to be a vastly different response.
Yes. Yeah. It's so weird in Hawaii that that's like commonplace. The first couple of times it happened, it kind of took me aback, but now it's like it's just really normal to talk about culture here, which is nice because I think it honors culture in that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, and I think it's important to like not just push people's cultures aside and say we're all the same. We're like, yeah, we all are the same, but we're different. Like my culture from Indiana is vastly different than yours from Michigan, even though the states are right next to each other, and we should talk about them and figure out what's great about the cultures.
Yeah.
Do your friends in Hawaii ever ask you for those great Michigan cuisines?
Sometimes people will ask me what's common in Michigan. I don't know if Michigan has like too much. It's like what Detroit style pizza, coney dogs.
Indiana has nothing. We have nothing. Like I even looked it up online, and there's like no one is like this is the thing from Indiana. Like we have corn, and that's it. And we didn't even make. It's not like we made corn, so we have nothing. So
okay.
yeah.
That's
so we have
funny.
nothing. So you work at a hospital. I know it's slightly different because you're in Hawaii, but what's a hospital like with everything going on right now? Is it crazy?
It's
or is it kind of just
it's stressful. I wouldn't say it's too crazy, but again, Hawaii's so much different right now than a lot of places on the mainland. So it's definitely stressful, and there's a lot of constant changing in policy as far as like visitors and stuff like that goes. And as far as like what kind of personal protective equipment we can wear. And for a while when it all started, there was like a shortage, and so that was a little concerning too because like we weren't wearing masks just all the time at work, which I was a big advocate for. We need to be wearing masks to protect our patients. The work isn't you're bringing it. We don't know, right? And now we do. We wear just regular surgical masks every day, and I think that's a lot better. But there's just so many questions originally, and there was so much disinformation or lack of information that everything was just changing daily.
Right.
So stressful. Yeah.
Even like official announcement from the CDC, everything just changed. And so I can't imagine being a governor of any area and saying, what do we do when all this information is changing daily?
No, I would never want that job.
Never. So what's it like? Does each island have its own governor? Like I just don't know how it works.
I should probably know that better too. I think each island has its own mayor, but there's one governor, I believe. I think our governor is Ige, and then our mayor for Oahu is Caldwell, and then there's different mayors for different islands.
Okay. What island are you on?
Oahu. It's the island of Honolulu, the big city island.
Okay. How long does it take you to drive from one end to the other?
Of Oahu?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever tried that. I would say maybe like an hour to 2 hours, maybe, depending on traffic. Traffic's horrible here, though. Usually.
Really? There's so many people?
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously you're on an island, so there's only so much space.
Yeah. And like, on the mainland, like if there's a traffic accident or something, you can kind of take different routes and stuff, but there's really only one east to west route that goes the whole way.
Okay. I understand. And I understand why. But that stinks. Like if there's an accident, you're just stuck.
Mm-hmm. For hours, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, you obviously write a lot.
I do.
You have
a lot.
Yeah, a whole lot. When did you start? When were you like, hey, I want to start writing books? Was there a moment where you're like, I'm gonna try this? Like I have a good idea. I'm gonna do this thing.
I guess probably Wilders was like the biggest moment of when I was like, I can be like a writer, not just like somebody who just does it on the side.
You do it on the side all your life? Like, is it something you've always done?
I've always kind of written. I wouldn't say it was ever like a business thing, like my whole life or anything. Sure. But yeah, I mean, even when I was like 8 or 9, I think I would like write stories for like the kids my mom did daycare for.
Okay.
So.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, a while.
And then you decided, I'm gonna do this. I'm at least gonna independently publish this book. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and freelance write and book coach and all of that stuff. Yeah, it all just kind of like went from something I kind of did to something I really did to now it's something that I just want to be able to transition to doing full time.
What's a normal day like for you? Because obviously you're working in the hospital a lot, and you're writing a lot, and you have a husband.
I do.
Yeah. So what's it like? What's a normal day?
I get up at like 5 a.m. and I feed the pets and I walk the dog, and then I sit down and I'll do like a piece of a project. So whether it's like something I'm ghostwriting that's nonfiction, I'll sit down and like listen to one of the videos that the person sent for me or audio recordings that the person sent for me and do a little research and type that up, that first draft. Usually about an hour to hour and a half is spent writing in the morning. Whether it's beta reading or working on something fictional, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing that for about an hour to an hour and a half. And then I walk the dog again for like a nice longer walk, get ready for work, go to work. I work, usually like 9 to 10 hours I'm out of the house for work, maybe a little bit longer sometimes. Typically working through lunch to write notes to get out on time, because healthcare is all about productivity, which kind of is unfair. But that's a whole different story, and I don't want to go in that rabbit hole. Sure. And then I come home from work and we eat dinner, maybe watch a little TV, and then I pretty much just go to bed.
So you mainly write in the morning?
Yes, but then on my days off, like today, Sunday and Monday, I do writing related things for at least half the day on Sunday and pretty much the entire day on Monday.
Okay.
I can usually crank out like 5,000 to 7,000 words on a Monday.
Whew. Ooh, that's so good. That's so good. So when you sit down, you say, this is my writing time. Mm-hmm. What are you getting to drink? What do you have snacks? What's your process? Do you write 5 hours straight? Do you take a lot of breaks?
It depends, I think, on like my mood and like how I'm feeling that day. Usually I'll drink like water. I usually just fill this guy up and throughout the day multiple times. I drink coffee in the morning. I only drink it in the morning, like 1.5 cups, and that's it, because otherwise I don't sleep well at night.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way.
And yeah. And then sometimes I'll drink like bubbly water, or I'll make like a mocktail with like unsweetened cranberry juice and bubbly water. And then maybe like a glass of red wine at the end of the day if I deserve it.
If you deserve it, what's your criteria for if you deserve it?
If I'm exhausted.
Okay, all right, that's fair. So I think a lot of people when they write, and a lot of people watching this, they can get through the first draft pretty well. It might take them a while, but they can sit down and say, I wrote this thing. But I think you and I both know the first draft is not the draft that you publish or submit anywhere. You have to edit it. So what's your editing process? Do you edit along the way?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So my draft is usually fairly clean.
Okay.
So yeah, part of my writing in the morning is like while I'm like getting some coffee to my brain is I'll reread like whatever I wrote the day before and kind of smooth it out and edit it for spelling and making sure I don't have a ton of echoes and stuff like that. Sure. And then that way I'm in the flow and in the right headspace to actually continue.
Okay, so by the time you're done with the book, you're finishing like 2 drafts at the same time, where you're writing the first one and editing it. What are you looking for when you edit? Because I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to edit, but they don't know what they're doing.
That's a good point. So I'm usually looking for, like I said, echoes. So like you don't want any sentence starts to be like all the same. You don't want your paragraph starts to be the same. You don't want to keep using the same adjective over and over again, which sometimes that's really easy to do. Like in my story for the anthology this year, I think I described one of the old people in my book as having like papery skin maybe like 7 times, and finally one of the betas was like, can you use a different adjective? So just stuff like that you're looking for, like to make sure that it's clear. I like to look for any inconsistencies. So like if I'm talking about the time of day, I want to make sure that that's all consistent and it makes sense. Make sure that the characters have the same hair color throughout, like same eye color. I look for speech patterns with my characters. Maybe that's a speech thing, I don't know. But I try to make sure that they sound different. So I want to make sure that somebody uses a specific type of words as opposed to like, the other person using that word.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you brought up beta readers. How many beta readers do you have?
For my books, I have 1 to 2, plus my mom, but my mom never gives me much feedback aside from like story development stuff. And usually it's like, I want more of an ending.
My mom reads my books, and every once in a while she's like, hey, you need to like fix this. And I'm like, okay, but it's never like, it's mostly just like, why did this character do that? And I'm like, I guess I'll fix it. So you have 1 to 2 beta readers. Mm-hmm. When you get their feedback, are you doing it chapter by chapter or the whole book?
Whole book.
Or whole story? Mm-hmm. When you get their feedback, how do you make sure it doesn't sting when you read it?
So I think you have to always look at it knowing, like, first of all, I think you have to choose your beta readers wisely. So not everybody's going to be the right beta reader for your story.
Right.
And just because someone volunteers to beta read for you doesn't mean that they're going to benefit your story either. Most of us in the writing community are pretty good at, recognizing what makes a good story, but not everybody has the same skill level, and I think that's something to keep in mind. And not everybody is the same right to happen. Sometimes when you beta read, it's easy to forget that you're not trying to change them. And so I always try to just take it with a grain of salt in the sense of like, is this style or is this grammar or is this developmental? And then I also just remember like the people that I do beta read with, they're only doing it to try to make my story better, not doing it to me. They're never doing it to prove it. And that's some positive feedback within the constructive feedback. So.
Okay. That makes sense. Because I think a lot of people, they're like, yeah, when they write a story and they're looking for the feedback, then they get the feedback and they're like, ooh. They either want to argue with the feedback or they just get crushed.
Yeah. I think probably arguing isn't really worthwhile. If you don't agree with it, just don't use it, in my opinion.
Sure.
If it's something you have a question about, that's different than, arguing. And then being crushed by it is, I think, make sure that you have a right to use your work, and then also just because about the story is not about you.
Yeah, I agree. What kind of movies do you watch?
I watch a lot of everything. I really like a lot of the Netflix originals. I definitely like young adult movies, which is probably part of why I write a lot of young adult. I like scary movies, but my husband doesn't really like them. But luckily, like my best friend's husband likes scary movies, and she doesn't really either. So we kind of win on movie night sometimes and get to like choose a scary movie when we're all together. And then action movies are pretty good. I'm really pretty easygoing. I've watched a fair amount of Korean movies with English subtitles. Like Old Boy is pretty good. Snowpiercer is good, but I think that was done in English.
Snowpiercer was done in English.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What? So what's the biggest difference between like American and Korean movies?
I would say Korean movies are like more graphic.
Okay.
They tend to be a little grittier.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it might just be the movies my husband picks for us to
It could be.
Too.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I haven't seen any, but it could be. So are you the same way with books? Are you pretty easygoing with books, or are you more selective on what you read?
I'm pretty easygoing with books. I'm not a big nonfiction reader, but I do read some nonfiction, so I can get an idea of the vibe and the flow and the structure for when I ghostwrite nonfiction. I really like young adult. I like science fiction, fantasy. I don't really read horror, even though I sometimes write horror. Just because I find with horror, it can go too dark too fast for me. And sometimes I find some of the paths to be almost offensive, which I'm a little bit of a prude sometimes, I guess.
So when you ghostwrite, are you choosing the topics, or does someone send you the topic and you're like, okay, I have to write this thing?
It depends. Sorry, my dog is like dreaming in the background.
Isn't that the best? Isn't that the best when they're dreaming and they're making all these really funny noises and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm like wondering what she's dreaming about.
Yeah, I always wonder that.
So with ghostwriting, so it depends on how you do it. Sometimes people come to me from my website and they propose an idea and a budget and a timeline. Other times I propose a budget and a timeline based on a job submitted on Upworks. Okay. So it just depends, and certainly payment versus work amount is a consideration, but also, I have to be interested in the project.
Okay. Are there ever days, because you wake up early, 5 a.m., are there ever days, and I'm sure there are, where you wake up and you say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to write?
Oh, yeah, there are. Mm-hmm.
How do you power through that?
Well, usually I spend my coffee time looking at my indoor garden that I started instead of writing. Like a total weirdo. Like, is there another sprout? I think that's a sprout. Does this guy need more dirt? Maybe he needs some dirt.
You sound like my wife. My wife does that stuff too.
Huh?
My wife does that stuff too.
Really?
She has a really big garden outside. She's always like, look at them. I'm like, they look the exact same.
Like exactly like what my husband and I do. I'm like, look at my babies. And he's like, they're plants.
I mean, I appreciate it. And I'm like, oh, they're blooming. They look nice. There's more this year than last year. But I'm like, they kind of look the same. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do allow myself some breaks, especially like toward the end of the work week when like my brain is just tired. And I might take a day off from writing. I don't necessarily make myself write every single day.
Okay. So, you beta read for people, right? Mm-hmm. When you're beta reading, what are you looking for?
Kind of the same things I look for when I edit myself, which is, like flow, echoes, repetitiveness. I try to catch typos and grammar stuff as well, but I'm not like the number one best with grammar as far as like punctuation goes. Usually I count on Aaron, A.W. Wang to do Wong. Sorry, A.W. Wong. I always say it wrong because I want to spell it right. So he catches a lot of like the grammar stuff for me when he beta reads, and so I try to carry that over for other people as I learn the rules better from him because he's really good at being analytical, which I'm more of a feel person. So I look for like, does this feel like something the character would do? Does this feel like something they would say? Does this fit their action. So I guess I would say I'm more of like a better for like the emotional aspect of beta reading and character development and story development, and then not so much like the proofreading editor type of beta reader.
Okay, that makes sense. I can understand that. I can see that based on how you're looking at the page, like what you're looking for. I can see that because I have a friend who's like all about the grammar, and he'll just like highlight stuff. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a mistake. Like,
But it's so important.
it's so
like,
important.
It's so nice to have a friend like that.
It's great. The only problem is since that's just how he reads in general. He didn't say I'm doing this for you. That's just what he does. But he tends to read a little slower because he's dissecting it. So you're a language pathologist. How'd that start? What made you decide that's what you want to pursue?
So I actually have a degree in double bachelor's in psychology and theater. And I was doing lighting design and teaching in a community college for a while. And I was like, I just want to do something more than this, which there's nothing wrong with working in the entertainment industry. It's working backstage is a very male dominated field, and it just wasn't comfortable for me at that point in time, the way that things were being done. And so I decided I just wanted to do something different, and I was going to go back to school for social work. And a friend who was a nurse was like, "You are so soft-hearted. You'll never survive as a social worker.
That's what you want to hear.
Don't do that."
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So they recommended I look at doing therapy or something where there's like noticeable growth and stuff like that. And so then I looked into speech therapy, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, it's so motivating. It's so cool. And you get to be such an important part of people's journey. And you can really make a huge difference in their quality of life. So that's kind of just how it happened. And then I was really lucky to get into grad school, because when I went back to school to get the 4 credits for the bachelor's for communication disorders, I did not realize how competitive it is to get into grad school for like any of the therapies, OT, PT, speech. And it's like a 10% admissions rate or something.
Oh,
and
that's
yeah. And if I had known that, I don't think I ever would have even tried. But luckily I did get in, and I got in my first round. And so it just was, I think it's just kind of meant to be.
So you do that 50 hours a week ish.
Ish.
Is it hard? Do you have trouble turning that off? Like, whenever you meet people, are you analyzing their speech, or are you just like, that doesn't affect you?
No, I'm not. Yeah, no, I don't do that. Sometimes though, if someone's coughing in a restaurant, you'll see me like whip around to be like, did they cough on their liquids? Are they choking? Everything. Like, okay, they're still coughing, but are they going to cough it out or?
Well, but that's a good reaction. Are they dying is a good reaction.
Yeah,
They said this word funny is a slightly different reaction. Yeah. So you married someone from Korea. Was he?
American.
He's American, but
yeah, he's American.
Korean culture.
Mm-hmm.
How much Korean culture did he have when you met him?
Oh, I don't know. We kind of made a deal that I don't talk too much about our marriage and like him in general, just because we're both not big on social media. And so I'm not even on social media except for Twitter and Instagram as an author.
Okay.
So
we don't.
Sorry.
It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. We don't have to. I've got a question, and if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. We'll move on. What were some things from Korean culture that were hard for you to understand? I asked that so a bunch of my sister-in-laws are really like into the Korean culture right now. They're younger than me, and they're all about the K-pop, and and like some of the stuff I understand, but some of it doesn't make sense to me at all. And
like what?
Well, the boy bands and the girl bands don't make sense to me. Like, at all. I mean, I thought we did that in the 90s, and we learned it wasn't that great, so we moved on. I mean, they sound good, I guess. I don't know. It's just, it seems really, maybe it's just because they're in the K-pop scene only, and I don't understand it, but it seems very, like, flashy. And like, men in their 30s and 40s look like they're in their early 20s.
I mean, I'm just jealous of that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess was there anything that you were like, oh, that caught you off guard that you had to learn to adjust to?
I mean, not really, because I mean, my husband's American,
Okay.
and he grew up in America, so I don't
Okay.
think there's like a huge cultural clash. I don't know, and I don't speak Korean, so I don't catch everything. Sometimes I
Okay.
think when he's into family back in Korea, so
Okay. No, totally understandable. So when you sat down to write your book, how'd you go about creating the group dynamic between the characters? Were you just like, hey, each of these characters is unique. How do they act together? Or were you like, what culture do I want to make them from? Does that kind of make
um,
that question make sense?
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. The cast is fairly diverse in Wilders. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm going to set out to write a diverse
Mm-hmm.
cast. It was just kind of like these people are thrown together in these circumstances. And I think probably the fact that I do live in such a diverse area probably helps a little bit of that. It's just kind of wrote out the way that I wrote out. I kind of more for like relationships. So,
Okay.
like this, like Rena, the main character, has this relationship with her best friend Alyssa, and like that relationship is Rena like plays it safe. She's like the rule follower that she, has to do right, follow all of the rules because that's the only way she knows how to live her life and feel safe.
Okay.
And then Alyssa is like the total opposite. She's like that loudmouth, brash, like does what she wants to do, is brave and not scared of anything. And there's that like dynamic between the two of them where Alyssa's always trying to like pull Ren out of her shell, and Ren is trying to keep Alyssa more chill, but like they love each other like sisters. So no matter what, even though they're different, they always have each other's backs. And then there's some other characters like Anthony and Sid, and they're best friends. They're like the only people who are younger. Everybody else is adults, and so they just end up like with this really weird, like kind of antagonistic best friendship where like they kind of poke at each other. You
Yeah.
know how guys
Oh
tend
yeah.
to like be more
So
like
that's all we do.
making fun of each other. Yeah, so more like that than whereas like Ren and Alyssa are more like sisters where they like are super lovey-dovey with each other.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Is there any? What are you working on next? So you're working on an anthology, right? But what what's after that? What's your next novel?
It's a really good question.
And how much can you say without major spoilers?
um, I mean, right now I think I just need to do my paid work. And
Yeah.
and then once I get some of the paid work that I'm working on done for freelance writing, then I might, if I have some time and the anthologies all have been done, then I might look at writing something for myself again. But right now it's just really
Okay. Okay. Completely understandable. I'm gonna hit you with a few other questions, and then we can kind of wrap it up. We are getting close to an hour. I've had a fantastic time. You're fantastic. Uh,
yeah.
um, what's your normal day off? You're writing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What's a day off where you're like, hey, I'm not gonna write? What are you gonna do if you just take the whole day off?
I don't know if I ever take the whole day off from writing and working, to be honest.
Really?
I can't remember the last time I just had like no work related anything. But last weekend we went to the beach on Sunday. So I got up and did some stuff in the morning, and then we went to the beach and it was like and like eggs and it's hard because you have to kind of time when you want to do stuff because like after the week after the full moon is when the jellyfish come like that following week, and then like you just have to time it with all kinds of stuff. And the beach is just reopened, and but yeah, I like to go to the beach. I like to play in the water. I like to snorkel. I'm actually really scared of the ocean and all of the creatures that live in it. I don't wear sparkly nail polish or jewelry in the ocean ever because I don't want to get eaten. But I've been learning to be more brave. And so I really enjoy snorkeling now. And it helps having good gear to do it so that you're not always fighting, to like not get, water in your eyes or anything. Yeah. But yeah, so that's what we do. Sometimes I go hiking, boarding. Just try to really enjoy being here in Hawaii.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do is enjoy the place where everyone thinks is paradise. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you're gonna take a vacation, where are you gonna go? Because you're in Hawaii. So where's your vacation spot?
The only place I've gone since moving here is home.
Oh, okay, so
So
Michigan.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
so
Yeah.
Michigan. Uh, so when you're on the flight, or if you're gonna do a road trip, but I assume you don't take many road trips in Hawaii. So yeah, on your flight back to the mainland, what's your playlist? What are you listening to?
Nothing.
You just sit in
I,
silence, or you read?
I I take the red eye home usually, so I sleep.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, we did that into Europe, and
Yeah, and then I just watch movies on the way home when
okay,
it's like not sleep time.
okay. What's your favorite meal?
Hmm. It depends on my mood. Um, but the thing that I crave the most that you cannot get here is nachos from Qdoba, which is so stupid. But like, I just want regular queso nachos with the pulled pork and the salsa verde and the corn salsa and the cheese sprinkles and guacamole. And when I go home, I eat them like 2 or 3 times, even though, and I eat like the whole thing
That's
in
so
one
funny.
sitting. And it's so funny because like in college that'd be like 2 to 3 meals for me, and now I'm like, oh, I need it
That's
all.
so funny.
Like, don't stop, no matter what.
That's so funny. When you visit, like, what do you want to eat? Nachos. Let's just go
Yeah.
get nachos. That's so funny. So you said you really like Halloween. Do they
I do.
celebrate Halloween in Hawaii?
Yeah, oh yeah. They do up all the holidays.
Okay.
It's really fun and like it's really weird in Christmas time at Christmas time because like everybody does all the lights and stuff, but there's no snow and it's not cold. And then like, last year around Christmas time we went to walk and see like all the downtown lights and there was like horses and like it was just like it's really fun. They really do holidays up here. It's just different is all.
What's different about it?
Well, the weather, like I'm
Well,
used to
yeah, sure.
cold, cold holidays. I'm not used to sweating on Halloween.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's really pretty much the same as far as like all the stores get all the stuff out ridiculously early, and like you see Christmas stuff, but like as soon as Halloween stuff is taken out, that kind of stuff. That's probably much the same.
Okay. You have a friend visit. Where are you gonna take them?
Good question. I would probably take them to Cayena Point, which is like one of the westernmost mountains preserve there after you hike, well, really walk, like 2.5 miles. And it's all along the ocean, which is really pretty. And then at the point, it's like in a January fall, you can see albatross nesting, which is really cool. And then if you go a little bit later in like the early springtime, then you can see the babies, and they're like these like little like balls or just look at them, which is really cool. And sometimes the different seabirds, like other seabirds, are nesting as well, and you can kind of see them in their little holes. You can usually see out there, you can usually see a Hawaiian monk seal, which is an endangered species, and they're usually sunning themselves out there, which is nice as well. And if you go during whale season, sometimes you can see a humpback whale out in the ocean that way too.
Cool.
So it's a really nice spot. It's easy hike as far as like it's pretty flat, but there's no shade. So if you ever do it, bring water and wear sunscreen and a hat. That's probably my favorite place to take people because it's not super strenuous, but it's really beautiful.
I mean, I'm just trying to picture what you said. I mean, I'm sure I can't even imagine what it was actually looking like. What when you moved to Hawaii, what were you thinking and what were you feeling like when you were on the plane and you saw the islands and you realized like you're getting close to like this is where you're gonna live? Do you remember what you were feeling, like what you were experiencing?
Well, I lived here, or I've visited here before, so
okay.
It was. I visited here before, so it wasn't that. Sorry, my husband is like ducking and rolling behind me to go get something without being in the video. But yeah, so I visited here before. I think I was more stressed because I had my cat with me on the plane, and because there's no rabies on the islands at all.
No rabies.
No rabies at all.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have like really strict rules about bringing animals into the islands. So even though I flew Alaskan Airlines so that my cat could be with me in the like in the plane instead of in the cargo, but I still had to give him up before I could deplane, and then I had to go pick him up at the quarantine. So basically, it was just super super stressful because there's like no Googleable address for where you're supposed to go to pick up your cat, but it's like not quite part of the airport, but it's right by the airport. But I couldn't figure out how to get there, and like nobody could tell me how to get there. So I'm like, I've been traveling for like 15 hours, and I can't figure out where to get my cat, and it's super hot out, and I need to make sure that I get my cat and get my rental car and get to pick up the keys for where we're gonna live like by a certain time. And it was just so stressful. I think I was too stressed to even be like emotionally anything other than just like I gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this. I was like so focused and regimented that like I didn't even like emotionally process it.
So what they take your cat for? What were they just making sure like give it a rabies shot? I mean, what were they doing?
So if you're bringing a pet onto the islands, you have to do a couple things. So if you know with enough time that you're going to be moving, like if you plan with like months in advance, you can do the blood test and the titers and the rabies shots and all of that stuff ahead of time. It has to be run by a specific lab on the mainland. And you have to have all your paperwork done. You have to pay ahead of time and send that stuff in. And then they just basically give your pet a once over, make sure they look good, make sure they match the paperwork. Check their microchip because they have to be microchipped, and make sure that matches the paperwork as well, and then they get them back to you. But if you don't have the time to do all of that, your pet actually has to live in quarantine until a certain time frame.
Okay. Thorough. Very thorough.
But we did it all ahead of time, so it was fine. I just had to find him.
You just had to find your cat. Okay. Has living in Hawaii influenced your writing?
Probably. It probably has in ways that I don't even realize. I think every aspect of what we do in our lives influences our writing, whether we realize it or not. I would say maybe like it's made me more aware of like family ties and bonds and how those friendships can turn into family, and how it doesn't change how much you love your actual family either. And that's like, I don't know. That sounds really cheesy.
No, but I mean, if it's true, right? Like, so is that really what it's like there? Like, you become so good friends, you're just treated like family.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I guess anywhere else if you find the right people.
Okay. So are there any Hawaiian celebrations or holidays that stand out to you as like really awesome?
Well, it's hard to say because everything's been so weird this year. Because they haven't been doing any like the festivals that they usually do. There's like a Merry Monarch festival typically, and there's like traditional hula dancing and all of this stuff that's got a lot of history behind it. And that's really interesting. And then like I talked before about how there's such a blending of cultures here. So they have like Greek festival, they have Japanese festival where like they just like the streets in main downtown area get like blocked off, and like you can go to all these different vendors and have like traditional food and see like artwork.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's just really nice how like there's a whole lot of community support for a whole lot of different things and to celebrate different cultures. There's like Boys Day and Girls Day, which I think is a Japanese thing, but don't quote me on that. And then there's also like different holidays here that relate to the monarchy that was here before the U.S. kind of came in and just took everything. So there's like Prince Kuhio Day and King Kamehameha Day and different things like that as well.
That's really interesting. It really sounds like instead of like filtering out parts of culture that we don't like or filtering out cultures that we don't like or fighting the differences, they're just like, no, like we're different and we're going to celebrate that and then highlight all the good stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think like something that's been really interesting living here that I didn't necessarily realize as much or didn't know about as much as the way World War II affected a lot of Japanese Americans. Like, you know, I have treated patients who were alive during the bombing of Pearl Harbor and who remember it as children and who fought, World War II as a result of it, or who were put in internment camps. And it's really crazy to think about how that must have been, because I feel like in the mainland, when we learn about that history, it seems like it was so long ago and it seems so distant. But like those people are still alive that were treated like that by the American government just for like being born Japanese. Like it's insane to me, and that's more real to me than it ever would have been, I think, if I hadn't lived here. And they have like a whole museum about like the blackouts that they had to do here on Hawaii, during that time to kind of avoid the chance of another surprise bombing and stuff like that. And it's just really interesting to learn about that time because, like I said, like in the mainland, it seems so distant. It's just like this blip that we learn about in history class. And here it's like a huge part of like how life was.
And you said you treat people who were...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's treating them like? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, usually because they're older, they've had like a stroke where they've fallen and hit their head and had like a subdural hematoma or something like that. So I'm just treating them like I would treat anybody. But, part of what we do is build rapport with patients. And sometimes that includes talking to them about whatever they feel like talking about. Some of them, because they're older, they might be living more in the past if they have, co-occurring dementia or something like that. Or some of them are just like really open to just talking about anything. And, I don't ever bring it up. But if someone brings it up, I don't tell them not to.
Sure. What's the hardest part when you're sitting there listening to people tell stories like this? Is it just that, like, you just can't believe it, like that all this happened? Like,
I think
does that question make sense? It made sense in my head.
It makes sense. I think the hardest part is just like that, like having empathy for it, but not like, I don't know, I don't want to say like not letting it ruin your day, because it just always sits heavy on your heart when you hear those stories. I think probably the hardest part is like trying to find a way to like hear them, let them know that they're heard and understood and cared for, and then also still finding a way to turn that treatment session into something positive, so that you can focus on the growth that they're working on right then.
So, gosh, that's got to be tough. Like whenever someone hits you, like saying that they remember Pearl Harbor, like how turning that into a positive has to be tough. How do you process something like that? Like something that hit you that heavy. I mean, obviously you're like, hey, let's turn this positive, but like when you leave work, it's still sitting on you, right? So like, how do you process something like that?
That's a really good question. I think I just think about it. I might like talk about it with my husband without, using any names or anything like that. But mostly I think I just let myself feel sad for what happened. And I mean, I don't know, what else can you do? You can't change history. You can just try to be better moving forward and make sure that as much as you can, that history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah. That's so interesting. What are people in Hawaii afraid that a volcano is going to erupt?
So a volcano did erupt like last year.
Yeah, it was all over the news, especially like here in the mainland. We were like, "Oh my gosh, Hawaii's gone."
It's yeah. So it's most of the islands are dormant. I don't think that I don't even know if all of them have active volcanoes on them. It's the Big Island that had the volcano last year, and that volcano has been kind of active, basically for like ever. I wouldn't say it's like an everyday fear. If anything, though, if someone moves here and they have like asthma or like sensitivity to, there's this thing called fog. When the volcano is more active, there's like these fumes that it gives off, and sometimes they can get carried across to the other islands with the wind and stuff. So you might notice like more voice problems or more allergies or shortness of breath or something if you're sensitive to that. That's probably the bigger thing, because the lava doesn't typically destroy homes like it did last year.
What's someone do if in the VOG? I mean, can you just like wear a mask and it's better? Like, what do? Or you just kind of say, oh, I got to deal with it?
Yeah, kind of deal with it. If you have the option to run your AC in your house, probably do that to help filter the air. And then maybe don't go on a hike or something on a really foggy day.
Does it just come and go?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It's like the humidity in North Carolina.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting.
I'll take fog over humidity.
It sounds like I probably will too. I don't have asthma, so I'd much rather deal with the fog. What do you miss most about Michigan, other than like the people and your nachos? What are there is is there anything like in Michigan you're like, man, I really miss that?
I mean, the seasons. I miss snow. People think that's crazy, but I like snow. The last time I went home in the winter, it was actually like in the negatives, like the whole time I was home, like -18 and stuff. And I still went like snow skiing, like cross country snow skiing and stuff with my dad. So I guess I just really I miss the seasons a lot. It's a big part of like my identification of the world around me, and like time frame references and stuff. And I like change. I think that's part of why I stay so busy is because I like to have options of like what's going on and I don't know.
You seem like a really like dedicated person. You're like, I'm going to be a writer, so I'm dedicated to this. I'm going to go get my master's degree. I'm going to go get it.
Yeah,
How
I guess.
how would you encourage someone who's kind of just like not dedicated to anything? They kind of like they don't know what they're doing in life. They're just like waking up and just kind of going. What would you tell them?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with just kind of waking up and kind of going. For one thing. I think it just depends. Like, if you really want something, you're going to figure out how to make it happen. And if you're stuck and you don't know how to figure out how to make it happen, like, sit down and write out the steps and then take them. And other than that, elicit somebody to help you be like, what's the word? Like, where you have to do it because they're counting on you to do it.
Yeah, like someone like accountability or
That's the So have someone who can hold you accountable. That's what I have to do for working out. I'm the worst. That's the same idea, I guess. Just other life things.
That's great advice. What are there any books, nonfiction books that have helped motivate you in life? Like, is there anything you read you're like, wow, that was powerful. I'm never gonna be the same.
Nonfiction.
We can do fiction next. We'll do nonfiction first.
I'm trying to think of like I don't really read like much self-help stuff, to be honest.
Well, it doesn't have to be self. I mean, is there anything you read you're just like, wow, that was an amazing book, or that person was amazing from nonfiction?
I don't know. There probably is. I just can't think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, no.
Most of it is like most of what I read that's nonfiction isn't usually like biographies or anything. It's usually like marketing or business or writing or
Yeah. So definitely different than than that person was interested. So fiction, like if someone's gonna meet with you, what would you recommend that they read? Obviously your book first, and then your anthologies. But after that, what would you recommend to them?
Oh man, it just depends on what they like. There's so many good books out there.
There's so many good books.
Yeah, like I feel like you really can't go wrong in general, but it just depends on like what genre you're interested in. As far as like young adult literary fiction, I really like Jenny Han's To All the Boys I Loved Before. I was really disappointed in the second movie on Netflix. But so that was like a good series I really liked for young adult. For fantasy, gosh, I don't know, like everything. I say like sci-fi as far as indie authors. I like Erin's book 10 Sigma. It's really good, and I actually got to read the third book. I haven't gotten to read the second one yet, but I beta read the third book, and it's so good too. I think it's better than the first, to be honest. I like it a lot. And then I always like Ender's Game. I feel like I could reread anything by Anne McCaffrey at any point in time. I don't know. I reread weird things too, like Gone with the Wind, even though there's so much about that book that I loathe. It's also like fitting.
That's really funny. There's so much that you don't like, but you're like, oh, I could read it again.
Yeah, because it's like compelling to read it, even if you don't agree with like, it portrays some bad parts of American history
Yeah.
and some stuff that's really relevant right now. But it's like, so even though there's parts of it where you're like, oh, you also like you're compelled to read it because Sky Little Hare is a really interesting character.
When you're reading, how conscious are you of what the author's doing?
It depends.
Like systematically, not story wise, because obviously, like story wise, you're reading the story, but but like on the page, like physically what they're writing, are you conscious of like this is how they did this sentence, this is how they did this paragraph?
I try not to be.
Yeah, me too.
I think it takes away from the enjoyment of the story. But there's some things when you read and it just gets in the way, and it can be traditionally published or it could be indie published. Like I cannot reread the Twilight books because they're just poorly written. Like they just fall down. They're not well written.
Prepare yourself for the comments. Prepare.
I mean, I liked reading them the first time. I just can't reread them. don't at me. But no. But like sometimes when you go to pick up a book and it's a really interesting concept, there's a style you just can't read. Like another one that I can't read and it's like I wish that I could read it because I want to read it is the Princess Bride. Like I love the movie, but like anything that has a lot of like asides that break the story, like even in the Scarlet Letter, like it just I don't like it. It's a style I don't like to read, and so I just don't read it.
That's understandable. It definitely seems like that particular style is for a certain type of person.
Mm-hmm.
I've never tried to read the book. Now, obviously, the movie The Princess Bride is incredible. I mean, it's a classic and like a cultural thing. I've never tried to read the book. Are there any writing books that you would recommend to people who are trying to learn the craft?
So I read oh gosh, a book about writing endings before I wrote my final book in my trilogy. And I can't remember what it was called, but it was good. I don't know. Maybe I don't even think I can find it on my phone, unfortunately. I should have been prepared.
It's okay. I gave you 0 questions ahead of time, so.
Yeah, I don't know what it was called, unfortunately. But it was something about like writing endings of books, and that was good. I think Martin Shannon of Weird Florida recommended it to me, so he might be able to pop in on the comments if you're watching, Martin, and like say what it was. But anyways, it talked about how like you have to know your ending and how to structure toward it and different types of endings and stuff like that. I thought it was interesting.
How hard was it to write your ending for the trilogy? I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers on what happened, but like for you as the author, how difficult was it?
It wasn't that hard. I knew where I wanted to take it. Once I decided I was going to write more, because like I said, the original one kind of has like this ambiguous ending, which apparently people don't like. Gosh darn it.
They're like, where's book 2? You're like, oh, it's coming. Yeah. It's coming.
Don't hate me.
It's coming. I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew how I wanted to wrap it up. I was like, all right, if I'm going to do a definitive ending, I'm going to end it like this. And then I just had to build from there for how to make that work. And I also wanted to make sure that I gave the characters a really good story arc as far as like their characters go. So there's a lot of growth in the characters that had to really be written. I mean, I don't want to say carefully because it's not like I sat down and like really thought it through too much, but I knew that there had to be certain changes in the characters to get to the ending that I wanted them to be at, and I had to figure out how to put things in their way that they would get to those endings.
What are you doing to clear your head?
I do my little indoor garden.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot.
And I walk the dog.
You're looking at the sprouts on your garden. I forgot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They're like in front of me right now too, so I can look at them right now.
So that's what you're doing, because like I know everyone gets stuck and they're like, I don't know what to do, or they're like they're thinking about their chapter and it's not coming together how they want.
So I'm kind of a plow through person. Like if I know the arc of the story, which is why I did that little triangle thing.
Mm-hmm.
if I know where I need to go, I'll just write it through and be like, I know this part sucks, I know it sucks, I know it sucks. I'm gonna write it, I'm gonna look at it with a fresh eye and fix it, and I just get through it. And I don't worry about how it's gonna sound because I know it's a first draft for a reason. And and I just get to the point where I'm ready to write again, and then I just go through and fill it in. And for me, that usually looks like, I tend to be an underwriter anyways. But for me, that looks like writing out the dialogue and not worrying about the descriptions and just getting the plot points in that need to be in, and then getting to a point where I'm like grooving again, and then just going through and ironing that out later.
I think that's great advice. And my thought is, one of the tips I learned was you can't edit what's not there. So even if you're writing and you think this is terrible, you can fix it later, but you can't fix it if it's never there.
Yes. Yeah.
As an underwriter, what are you doing when you sit down with you and say, I need to put more in here? How do you decide what to put in?
So since I usually have the dialogue, I just have to decide like, okay, so I know my character's emotional beats because I wrote this dialogue. I know how they look. I know how they sound because it's in my head. But my reader doesn't know because I didn't write what they did with their face or their hands or their body. So I usually fill in that stuff and try to do a little bit of atmosphere. I don't necessarily describe my character's physical looks too much because I don't know, I like the idea that like the reader can kind of put themselves in the character's shoes a little bit that way and see them how they relate to them. But I do, a lot of facial expression and stuff like that to make sure that the emotional purpose of the dialogue is carried over.
That makes sense. I'm not an underwriter, so I don't know what that's like. I don't know if I'm an overwriter either. I think I am. I tend to write sentences that are just really long, and I'm like, all right, time to shorten that. Yeah. Or I'll do like walk slowly. I'm like, okay, let's fix that. That's what mine are. Is like getting rid of the adjectives and adverbs. What I'm gonna end it with this question for you. And before we do, everyone check out our book on Amazon. It's in the description. Check it out. You're amazing. You really are an amazing person. You're doing charity. You're working at a hospital. You're writing, and you are keeping a husband through all of your busyness, which also means that you're spending time with him. So
either that or he's just really good at being independent.
That's part of being married too. You're an amazing person. What are 5 tips that you would give someone who wants to be a writer?
5 tips.
Whether it be writing tips, discipline tips, whatever you want to give.
Okay. 5 tips. Let me see.
On the spot. Nope.
I just like hold my hair out like it's got ideas hidden in it. So I would say get a routine. Be willing to break your routine. So that's 2. Get a routine and be willing to break it.
That's 2.
I would say be careful who you surround yourself with. Especially like in the writing community and stuff. Don't take it to heart if people get like snippy. Sometimes people don't realize how they come off. We're all writers. We don't always realize how our words come off. And, the way you perceive something might be different than how it was meant. And so I think it's really important to kind of, don't take anything too much to heart with what you see on social media because some of the best beta readers that I've come to are some of the people who I really enjoy seeing their process and learning about how they write to inform how I might want to try writing. Has come from that. And then for number 5, I would say maybe like I don't know how to say this so that it makes sense, but like you have to be attached to your writing, but don't get so attached to your writing that you can't change it when it needs to be changed. Like you have to be open to editing, you have to be open to developmental changes because I think there's nothing worse than an amazing story that then like it's funneled into this idea because like the author just wanted it to happen that way and it doesn't make sense and nothing comes together the right way. Whereas if you're willing to like step back and look at it and try a different approach, this is way better. So I guess like don't get so married to the idea that you start with that you can't change it as needed.
That's great advice. That's fantastic advice. Yeah, absolutely. You've been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. When your next book comes out, let me know and we'll do it again. Or your next anthology or whatever it is you're working on, let me know. We'll do it again. You're amazing. Everyone check out your book, the Wilders trilogy. What's each one's called? We never actually discussed what each book is called.
Oh yeah. Okay. So the first book is called The Change because it's like when everything erupts and changes. The second book, the like main book in it is Wilders, and then the last book is called Consequences, and the tagline is bold choices have consequences. Now it's time to face them.
Mm, that sounds so good. That
Thank
sounds
you.
fantastic. If you like dystopia, check it out. YA dystopia. That's what you call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out. If you like anthology and supporting charities, check those out. You've been amazing.
Thank
Love
you.
to have you again. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.